Hey, welcome back to TuckerAllen Live. I'm Scott Trout, and it's Friday. It's 1 o'clock Central Time. That means we're here with the attorneys from TuckerAllen. We're here with, again, Jim Gau. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
So today, as always, we want to just bring some information to people just for the next 10, 15 minutes. So we talk about a topic that's relevant to estate planning and elder law and all things. And this one's a good one, as we were just talking off camera, because it's one I think that many people overlook. And it affects 50 to 51% of the population that are married, and that is estate planning and divorce, which is essential, no doubt, when you face that issue where you are in a divorce. You've already been divorced. You're considering divorce. There's some critical things you need to think about, especially when it comes to estate planning and the process and what changes you should be making. And honestly, I do think it's probably the last thing that's discussed with a lot of family law lawyers, that they're just not either skilled in this area of estate planning and they don't know, what to do, the importance of it. So let's just start right away. And obviously, as we're talking through, it's not legal advice. This is more informational for you all. And we'd love for you to schedule a consultation with one of the TuckerAllen attorneys. You can go to TuckerAllen.com to do that. But let's talk about it, Jim. Really, there are three elements we can talk about, either during and after, and kind of reviewing what you have. So how do you, or how should you, make estate planning part of your divorce and ultimately as we're getting to a decree or a judgment?
Sure. So like you said, estate planning's not, it's not isolated from divorce. Obviously, estate planning, we talk about your whole family, and we're planning for your family up until your death. And divorce is something that's changing your family situation pretty dynamically, drastically. And it can be actually a part of the negotiations in the divorce. And so I've seen it a lot that divorce attorneys, family law attorneys call our office and say, hey, we're trying to negotiate this divorce settlement, and we're talking about purchasing life insurance policies, but we want to be sure that policy stays in place. So what can we do to make, kind of lock that policy in a bubble where it can't be changed or canceled or cashed in?
Yeah.
And normally that's when there's alimony, spousal support, or children involved. And so, we set up an irrevocable life insurance trust to kind of secure that policy as part of those negotiations.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are a lot of times, for example, where I am in St. Louis County has some standing orders when the divorce is filed. I know that you can't make changes like that, but it should be part of the consultation and the conversation with your attorney, or even if you bring someone like you into the mix and say, okay, here's what we should be doing. Here's what we should be proposing. As you suggest, oftentimes you'll see life insurance as a backup to guarantee some spousal support or child support. And that's not unusual. But there are ways you can do it, and a proper way to put it, as you suggested, and maybe an irrevocable trust or something to that effect. But I think if you're watching, and maybe you've been through it, you're thinking about going through it, or you are going through it, and you haven't had that conversation about, hey, should I be thinking about my estate plan and how it's affected by what's going to happen here? You need to have that and have that consultation. But I think what's more important, considering across the country, there are even in different counties and different locals, there are rules that prohibit you from doing a lot of things during the divorce. Making changes following the divorce is equally, if not more important, right?
Absolutely. So normally in Missouri, we draft a joint trust between husband and wife. It's called a qualified spousal trust. We actually have a specific statute allowing that. And there's a lot of benefits to husband and wife owning property jointly in a joint trust like this. So obviously, if we're severing the marriage, we should probably terminate and sever that joint trust. We'll dissolve the trust and distribute the assets out, if any assets are owned by the trust, according to the divorce decree. But you want to make sure, even if your trust says that should, in the event of divorce, that now ex-spouse is treated as predeceased, you don't want to rely on that. That trust was drafted when you guys were happily married, or maybe not so happily married, depending on the time between. But it was drafted with the fact that you would be married at death in mind. So even if it says treat my spouse as though they're predeceased, that person's named everywhere. That trust was designed to provide for them. We want to get that dissolved and get separate trusts drafted up.
Yeah, if you're an avid watcher of either when we were doing virtual town halls or this TuckerAllen Live, we're always professing something as simple as powers of attorney, whether it's healthcare or financial, or just start with a will, or TOD, POD, all these things that you may have implemented. Now life's changed. We've always talked about the legacy protection program that TuckerAllen offers, and this may be a really good opportunity for someone who's thinking, hey, I belong, I need to come and talk about it. But once the life changes, I heard this analogy. You get married and your spouse is seated next to you at the table and everyone's there to celebrate. At some point in divorce, they're no longer next to you, they're across the table or they're across the room. It's kind of that dynamic. You have to understand that maybe things need to change. Beneficiary designations, healthcare designations, who's on checking accounts, titles, all of that needs to be reviewed after divorce, right?
Absolutely. And so normally when you've set up your trust or your estate plan, you've gone through and hopefully funded your trust and changed the titling to the name of your joint revocable trust. Normally your spouse is the primary beneficiary on your retirement accounts. And I can't count on, I can't tell you the number of times where I've seen clients come in and said, I got divorced 20 years ago. We just need to, do our estate planning now. And, life's changed and I want to make sure my old kid, my adult children get my assets the way I want them to. And we start going through and looking at their beneficiaries and their spouse 20 years ago is still listed on that. And so absolutely, you want to go and make sure, because these companies are going to go by what is listed on those beneficiary forms. So if you still have your ex-spouse on there, they're going to contact them first. Healthcare power of attorney. If your spouse is the primary healthcare power of attorney and that's in your medical record, the doctors are going to contact that person asking them to make decisions. And I would imagine that very few people want their ex-wife or ex-husband, ex-partner to be the person that the doctor is contacting in an emergency end-of-life situation. So even if they don't legally have the power anymore because you are divorced and they're technically upon entering the decree removed from that seat of power, they're still going to be the first contact that people make. And so absolutely, you're going to want those redone and the beneficiaries to be changed and your asset titling. We mentioned, get separate trusts following the divorce, get rid of that joint trust if you've got it. And then you want to retitle your assets out of the old trust name into the new one. So we just want to make sure everything's updated, titled properly, and directed to the right people.
Yeah, I mean, divorce is stressful. Death, taxes, divorce, top three, and the last thing you're thinking about is pulling that trust document, that booklet, that binder off the shelf that's gathered dust. You haven't thought about it in years. Maybe it's been quite a while. And it is important. It's just, let's do a checkup. I mean, that's the whole legacy protection program is kind of an annual checkup that you offer. Maybe let's talk about the legacy protection program one more time, because I always like to mention it just because every time we talk, there's some way that the legacy protection program can help people out there.
Yeah. So, the legacy protection program, it's an annual program. And so you actually get a year if you come to TuckerAllen and execute your estate planning documents. The first year is included if you sign up for, the ongoing program. And we'll help you with 2 funding items a year. You'll get a discount. Your family gets a discount. And you get that annual checkup of your plan. So I always see clients come in and it's big life events. We got married, we bought a house, we had a kid. They come in and they revisit their estate plan for that. But divorce is obviously, a big life event that needs revisiting for your estate plan. It's just a hectic time that people don't necessarily think about it. With the joyful times, everybody wants to come in and plan and feel accomplished. The hectic, stressful times like a divorce or a bankruptcy or something like that, or a lawsuit, nobody wants to come in and talk to yet another attorney about updating their plan
and spend more money, and that's the thing, right? And I think, if you're going through it, one of the first steps maybe, and I think mentioned, is obviously you don't want it, let's just say it's not amicable, and you don't want them to make healthcare decisions for you here where, COVID's still around. We've got variant after variant, who knows what's happening, and protect those and make the right person to make the healthcare decisions for you. Start with the POA, the healthcare POA, get that done, get that taken care of, just amend it, revise it. Who's going to do the financial stuff? Again, it's good to do it all, but if you're a little reluctant, let's just start with the easy things. And those can be done quickly. They're very, very cost affordable. I think that's huge, especially when in 50% of the time, these, the matters in divorce, it's very difficult, and you're not getting along, and it's contentious and it's litigated. So you probably the last person you want is your spouse making healthcare decisions for you, right?
I would think so. I think the person that I just had a massive falling out with, I don't want their finger on the
Yeah,
plug of
right.
life support. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, it does. I know it. I don't want to be, talk about it in light terms, but it's so important, and just like anything, just preparing, planning. This is what these are all about. This TuckerAllen Live is, hey, here's an idea. The things that you don't think about. This is what's really important, because if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? That's really what it comes down to.
Right, because just like funding the trust, just a standard operating procedure, we set the trust up, we signed it, we're funding it now. If it's not done in 30, 60, 90 days, it's going to be years. And
Yeah.
so if you're not thinking of it when it's top of mind at the end of the divorce, you sign the decree, let's go finish this process, it's going to be years, and you're going to be that person that's 15, 20 years down the road that we're saying, why didn't you get your ex-wife or ex-husband, ex-spouse
Right.
off of these beneficiaries, off of these documents?
Exactly. Well, Jim, thanks as always for joining and bringing to light such an important topic that affects 51% of the population. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me again.
Every Friday, 1 o'clock Central, we're going to bring just the details and things like this that are relevant to you, whether it's about estate planning or just life, because life happens, life changes. And this is a glaring example of one of those occasions where life changes are important to consider with estate planning and make those appropriate changes. So you can schedule a consultation with the attorneys over at TuckerAllen by going to TuckerAllen.com. You don't even have to pick up the phone. You can schedule it right on the website and just have some consultation. I have a few changes for you, and you can get more information about the legacy protection program that Jim mentioned. It's key, and you don't have to be a current client. You can go ahead and sign up for that if you want, and just kind of protect the back end and just have those annual checkups. So until next Friday, every Friday, 1 o'clock right here on Facebook, have a great weekend.